evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Bullpen Podcast. I am your host, Adam Kunos. First of all, happy Sunday, everyone. Hope everyone enjoyed the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. I know we just had a great ending to the Dallas-San Francisco game. Congratulations to the San Francisco 49ers as they will head on to Philadelphia to take on the Philadelphia Eagles in the NFC Championship. And congratulations to the Cincinnati Bengals and the Kansas City Chiefs. There will be a rematch of the AFC Championship game next Sunday. Once again, my name is Adam Kunos. Welcome to the Bullpen Podcast. You can follow the show at the Bullpen Pod on Twitter. You can also follow me on Twitter at Kunos19. We have a great show in store for you today. We're going to be talking some National League West previews. We're going to talk through all 5 teams, which teams have made the best improvement. The biggest question that I'm going to ask tonight, and hopefully get an answer to at the end of the show, is are the Dodgers still that top dog in the National League West? They have had the control of this division since 2013. Only 2021 is the only time they finished second in this division ever since then. But for the last 10 years so, they've had a stranglehold on this division. We are sponsored by Fanatics. Head on over to Fanatics using the Linktree link in our Twitter bio for all of your MLB gear. Spring training gear will be heading out onto the shelves in stores online momentarily within the next, I'd say, 4 to 5 weeks. As spring training is less than a month away, it's hard to believe that we are just a month away from spring training starting. Pitchers and catchers will report to their camps within the next 3 to 4 weeks. And then we are underway for spring training. We got the World Baseball Classic. And then opening day will be upon us without even knowing it. It's going to sneak up on us. So we are back, and we're going to dive into our show. First, we're going to just recap of what we talked about last week. We did take a look at the American League West division. This is the division that the Astros have pretty much had control of, like the Dodgers have control of this division since 2017. They were last year's division champs. The Mariners did have a great season last year. They were able to take home an AL wildcard berth, their first playoff appearance since 2001. The Angels, they got off to a great start last year. However, they did fall off towards the season. And then the Athletics and Rangers had okay seasons. The Athletics are going into a rebuild mode. The Rangers were trying to find their way last year, and hopefully a new manager does make that difference down in Arlington. But I did lock in the Houston Astros as my division pick for the AL West, and I did lock in the Seattle Mariners as an AL wildcard team. But we did cover the AL West. Now we're going to shift to the National League and talk American League Western Division. And we're going to start off with the team that I am representing on my hat right now, the Arizona Diamondbacks. Arizona last year has 74 wins in 2022. A year before, they only had 52 wins, so that was a 22-win improvement from 2021 to 2022. They had a better team last year overall, and they did have some great deals in the offseason. A big signing is they signed veteran third baseman Evan Longoria to a 1-year deal. He is going to be a great veteran clubhouse appearance for this team. He has been on good teams like the Rays. He went over to San Francisco for a while, so he does have good playoff experience, especially with Tampa. We all remember him in Tampa, the 2011 regular season finale against the Red Sox, the walk-off homer in the bottom of the 11th to send the Rays to the playoffs and send Boston packing. If you have a chance to go over to Tropicana Field, they do have a home plate plaque on where that ball did land. Had a chance to go down and visit that area, and it was just cool seeing how they memorialized that moment in Rays history. They do bring back Zach Davies. They add Kyle Lewis on a trade with the Mariners for Copper Hummel. The biggest addition for Arizona this year is they're going to have Nick Ahmed back this season. He only appeared in 17 games last season due to injuries. He has been injured over the last couple seasons. So having him back on the field for Arizona will be a good addition for Arizona. His offensive presence was missed. He has a good defensive mind in the infield. So he will be back in this lineup. And when you look at Arizona's core in the infield, they got Walker at first baseman, Marte at second, Ahmed Beck at shortstop, and you have to figure Longoria will be at third base, or he could kind of fill in at DH. They have a good infield core. And saying that Arizona does have a good past history of good infield players, but this infield core, I believe, for Arizona will be one thing that kind of makes or break this season for Arizona. They're looking to hopefully get to the playoffs for the first time since 2017, when they did clinch the NL wild card. So Arizona's had an interesting up and down couple of years. Going back to 2017, where they did make the playoffs. 2018, they kind of were in the hunt, and they fell off towards the end. In 2019, they were completely awful. 2020, they go all in for that shortened season that kind of collapsed the entire way. And then we see them do a rebuild in 2021. And then hopefully 2022 is another step forward in this young team. And they're a very young team out in the desert. But I think that Arizona will have a good team going on this year. However, they do have a little hiccup in their minor league system, as Jose Valdez, one of their minor leaguers, has been suspended for a second time in violating the Major League Baseball and minor league baseball drug policy. Again, second suspension, not the greatest thing to have on your resume as a big leaguer going forward. So this will kind of stick with him. This is going to hinder him going forward. But I think Arizona does have a good team coming this year. Personally, as a Diamondbacks fan, I love when Arizona wins. I love when they're playing good baseball because they're just a fun team to watch. If you haven't had a chance to go out to Chase Field, I highly recommend it. It is one of the best fan-friendly stadiums in the league right now. It is a dome stadium, so don't worry if you're going to the desert. It is dome, it is air conditioning, but it's just a fan-friendly stadium. There's not really a bad seat in the house, so that's my wife's favorite stadium. It's one of my favorite stadiums only because they have a Portillo's in the stadium, which if you're from Chicago, you know that restaurant, fast food chain, and if you live down in Florida, you know as well. But besides the fact, Arizona has a good stadium, they have a good young team, so I think that Arizona will be a good contender this year. Do I think they're a playoff team? I'm not going to lock them in as a playoff team. I think there will be a huge improvement. I can see them winning maybe 75 to 80 games this year. I can even see them finishing at 500. Maybe they have a season like Baltimore had last year where they just kind of kick the fire towards the middle of the season and it's never let go of the gas. The NL is going to be a very competitive league this year. You have a lot of good playoff teams coming back this year. You got some teams who have made more improvements than Arizona over this past offseason. So I think that Arizona will be a good team. I just don't see them as a playoff team. The other team in this division who didn't really have that big an offseason will be the Colorado Rockies. And going through their offseason and kind of look at some of their transactions they made, there wasn't really a big name that jumped out to me as someone that they brought in to help this team going forward. They do have veterans like Chris Bryant, who's going to be back this year. He spent the first year of Colorado pretty much on the injured list, so he is going to be a good addition for his offense. They add Seabold to the rotation, but they do have a lot of good prospects in Helen and Korn in their minor league system who will eventually make the jump to the big leagues. I just don't know if Colorado is going to be that team that makes a huge impact in the NL West. They're looking up at Arizona. They're looking up at San Francisco, San Diego, and LA. They got a huge hurdle to jump going forward in this year. If you look back at their last two seasons, they had 74 wins in 2021, which was a good year for them, but they decreased back in 2022. They only had 68 wins, so it was a 6-win differential from 2021 to 2022. So it is going to be a hard battle for Colorado going forward. Like I said, they got a lot of good teams looking up. They're looking up as in the division. I just don't see Colorado as a contender this year. And if you're a Rocky fan, I wouldn't be too hard on this team. They've had the last two seasons have been pretty much. They've had their issues with big time players. We saw what happened. We saw what happened when they traded Nolan Arenado to Colorado, and it's just the front office, I think, needs to change for Colorado. I think there needs to be a whole regiment change within Colorado. I'm not saying that it's going to happen anytime soon. I just think that Colorado doesn't have the talent right now to contend. Doesn't mean that they're not going to be a horrible team this year. I don't think they're going to be a horrible team. I just don't think they'll be a contending team. But with this young team that they have in the minor league system, I think that there will be something that they can look forward to in the next 3 to 4 years where they will be a contender and where they will be able to compete with teams like the Dodgers or the Padres, who went out and actually did spend a lot of money this offseason. But as of right now, I just don't see Colorado making that huge improvement. As we talk about Arizona, we talk about Colorado, we're going to shift over to the California side of the NL West, and we're going to start with the team in LA who has been running this division, like I said, since 2013, the Los Angeles Dodgers. They have had such a big offseason in the fact that they have lost a lot of players. They've brought some good players, but they have lost a lot of good players over this offseason. Trey Turner, Andrew Heaney, David Price, Justin Turner, Cody Bellinger. The list can go on, but those 5 players have been a staple in the Dodgers for the last 5 years. I mean, a lot of these players were on the 2020 team that won that World Series, so you're losing a lot of these core players for the Dodgers. And it's money. The Dodgers were bringing these huge contracts, so they just weren't able to afford most of these players. Now, they do bring back Clayton Kershaw, who is a staple of Dodger pitching. They do bring in Jason Hayward, only on a minor deal. I don't know if he's going to be invited to camp, but I wouldn't be surprised if we do see him get an invite to big league camp at the beginning of March. They do bring in Noah Syndergaard, and they also bring in JD Martinez to fill that DH role. So they do bring in some good players going forward for this team. It's just hard to picture this Dodger team as someone that lost a lot of good players over the offseason. Trey Turner, I think, is a big loss from them. Justin Turner, Cody Bellinger, they're 3 good hitters off this team who I think they're going to miss going forward in 2013. Doesn't mean that the Dodgers are going to be a bad team this year. I think they'll still be a good team. Again, they ran away with this division last year. They pretty much put the chokehold on this division at the All-Star break and never let go. So they've had this division wrapped up since August when we were getting close to playoffs time last year. They pretty much had this division on chokehold and they never let go. And yes, in 2021, they had competition from the Giants, who were pretty much just a surprise team who came out of nowhere to win this division. They've had challengers from the Padres over the last couple seasons. Arizona gave them a run for the money back in 2017. But since 2013, they really haven't seen a big contender from this division. But I think that's going to change. I don't think the Dodgers are going to be that stranglehold on the NL West team that we've seen over the last couple seasons. I think they're still going to contend for this division, but I just don't think it's going to be as easy as they saw last year. The Padres made a lot of good moves. The Giants, even though they didn't make a lot of splashes in the offseason, they're still going to be a good team. Arizona's becoming a good team. Colorado's going to eventually become a good team. So this division will become very competitive again momentarily, but it's just going to be hard to see what they can do overall. One thing that did happen in the offseason is Trevor Bauer. We all know that Trevor Bauer was accused of sexual assault. Not going to go into the details of what his case was, what the results were, but the Dodgers did make the decision to release Trevor Bauer from his contract and pretty much release him from the team. He did come out saying that he was disappointed by the Dodgers' move, but he does respect it as the team business. He does recognize the business side of baseball. So he hopes to eventually be playing in the major leagues in our uniform. I just don't think he'll get that chance with the amount of days left on the game and kind of on his name. I don't think you'll see Trevor Bauer in another Major League Baseball uniform going forward. It's going to be very hard to see him do that. Just the fact that what he went through this season, the number of women that came out accusing him of sexual assault, and just the case itself, how prominent it was to go through this case file, read it from top to bottom if you had the chance to. I have not gone deep into this case. I've only read the footnotes, but there was a lot of charges brought up against him, and those are going to stick with him, unfortunately. So Trevor Bauer's off the Dodgers. He is now technically a free agent, so we'll see if he lands somewhere with another team. Moving on to another team, we're going to talk about the San Diego Padres. This team, to me, is very interesting. They made a lot of good additions in the offseason. They did spend a lot of money in the offseason. One player that did spend a lot of money on was Xander Bogaerts. They bring in Xander Bogaerts on another multi-year deal. He's one of these multi-year contracts that we've seen going around. Bogaerts, Aaron Judge, Carlos Correa at the time before he signed with the Twins. These are just one of the many contracts that we've seen that are where teams are just shelling out a ton of money for these top free agents, and he was one of these top free agents going through. But you look at what what the Padres did in the offseason. Recently, they did add Nelson Cruz on a DH as DH for the team. Again, it's only a source. The team has not yet confirmed that this has been taken care of. Robert Suarez is coming over. Xander Bogaerts, Matt Carpenter. They did bring Adam Engel in, a longtime White Sox player who is a good utility player out in the outfield. So that makes a good fit for San Diego. They do lose Brandon Drury, Josh Bell, and Mike Clevenger, but I don't think these losses are going to hinder San Diego in the long run. I think San Diego is going to be a great team this year. I wouldn't be surprised if they give the Dodgers a closer run for their money than they did last year. They did have a great offseason, and they did have a good going into 2023. They clinched the NL wild card last year. They went all the way to the National League Championship Series where they did face the Phillies. So they did make the playoffs again after failing to make the playoffs in 2021. 2020 they make the playoffs. They lose to the Dodgers in the division round. But they do get back to the playoffs last year. They do beat the Dodgers in the division round last year. So they kind of give that staple that they're now a team that's going to be contending for in the National League West. Overall, do I think that the Dodgers have a great offseason? Yeah, they did. They shelled to get a ton of money this offseason. But one thing that I think is going to be overlooked that we have to be ready for is Fernando Tatis Jr. will be back with this team. At one point during the season, he will return from his suspension, his drug suspension from Major League Baseball. So he'll return to his team. Now, how effective he returns, that's going to be another question. We don't know if he's going to be an instant contending with his team, if he's going to make that huge impact on his team coming back, or does it take him maybe 10, 15, 20 games to finally get back in that playing shape that we've seen him as and have that huge impact in this lineup. But regardless of the fact, this lineup for the Padres is going to be a huge lineup. They're going to have a great lineup, I think. And when we get closer to the season, we'll talk about which teams who will have the best lineup on paper. But right now, I think the San Diego Padres have one of the better lineups in the National League West, and I think they will contend. They're going to contend regardless of the fact. I think they'll be in the race from day one to the last day of the season, and I think they are a playoff team. Now, whether they're the division champ or a wild card remains to be seen, but I think that the Padres will be a good contender this year, and I see them improving from last season. Last season, they were the NL wild card. They got the NL championship season. They've got that taste of postseason, and they're not going to let it go. So I think Bob Melvin has a good team that he's going to play with out San Diego, and I think he'll make this team a contender for the next 3 to 4 years, however long that they are able to keep this core with him. Our last team that we're going to talk about are the San Francisco Giants. Now, the Giants, to me, are a team that's had the most unique offseason. But first, we're going to look at what they did over the last couple seasons. 2021, 107 wins, best in the National League. Team came out of nowhere to win that division. They had a great season. 2022, a little bit of a letdown for Giants fans as they only win 81 games, a 19-win differential from 2021. So they definitely had a underperformed season, especially after the season they had in 2021. But at one point, the Giants did have Aaron Judge and Carlos Correa signed to them. At one point, they had agreements with these players that they were going to be going to the Bay, and this was news to everyone in baseball. We thought, oh my God, the Giants are finally going to make this huge signing. They're going to bring in Aaron Judge. That kind of fell through. He stays in New York. They're going to bring in Carlos Correa. After that falls through, Correa goes to New York, but eventually winds up back in Minnesota. They do sign Michael Conforto and Jose Alvarez to their team, but they do lose Brandon Belt and Carlos Rodon to free agency. Rodon, I think, is going to be a huge loss for them. He was a good pitcher for them last season. He had a good season with them. And Brandon Belt is definitely going to be a huge loss. He's now north of the border with Toronto. So he is definitely going to be something that is going to be missed out of this Giants team. And this Giants team, it's hard to get a read on them. It's really hard to get a read of how good this San Francisco team is going to be going forward. You look at the roster, they did make a lot of interesting additions, but you just don't know how good this team's going to be. Are they able to keep up with the Padres? Are they able to keep up with the Dodgers? Will they be able to hold off a team like Arizona, who could push them for that third place finish in the NL West? Only time will tell how good this Giants team is going to be, and we just have to wait till spring training starts. I mean, I can't give you a good answer on what the Giants are going to be this season because it's hard to figure out what this team did in the offseason. Like Colorado, they had somewhat of a quiet offseason, but they did have something where they were going to have Aaron Judge or Carlos Correa come in. You can only imagine what if Aaron Judge stayed with him. What if Aaron Judge officially came over to the Giants? What if we saw the Giants introduce number 99 in the Giants jersey? What if they saw Carlos Correa be introduced in the Giants jersey? All these what ifs may linger with Giants fans for offseason. If Aaron Judge goes out and has another monster season, Giants fans are going to be sitting back going, we could have had this out in the Bay. If Carlos Correa has a good season, we could have had this out in the Bay. So it's a lot of what ifs for this team going into this season. So we have a chance to look at the entire NL West. And again, this division, I think it's going to be a good competitive division. I think it's going to be a 3-team race at the start, but I think eventually it's going to come down to the Los Angeles Dodgers and the San Diego Padres. I think these two teams will be the ones that are going to be competing for this division going forward. And who am I going to lock in as division picks? Now, I have been thinking about this all week. I've actually jumped back from the Padres and the Dodgers on who could win this division. And in the end, it could be a coin flip. You could flip a coin, and 50 times out of 100, you could have the Padres winning. The other 50, you could have the Dodgers winning. But I'm going to lock in the San Diego Padres as my division pick. I'm going to lock them in as my division winner for this season. I think they have enough to overtake the Dodgers finally. I think the Dodgers finally give up the division again. I think that the Padres finally get that division title, their first since 1998. Oh, sorry, their first in 2006. They did win the division back in 2006, but I think they finally get that first division title since the mid-2000s, and I think the Dodgers still get a wild card spot. I think the Dodgers will still be a wild card team. I don't think there's going to be a top wild card team. I give them maybe a second wild card. I think there's another team out in the National League that will have a better season than the Dodgers to give them that division, the wild card spot. But I'm going to be locking in the San Diego Padres and Los Angeles Dodgers as my playoff team. So the Padres get the division this year, and the Los Angeles Dodgers get the division. So those are my lock picks for here. You heard here on the Bullpen Podcast. We will retweet my picks out tomorrow when the episode posts. And again, we're going to see if I'm right with this pick. We're going to see if I'm wrong with this pick. So a lot of stuff coming through. So if I had to go through and give my final division outlook, Colorado's going to be fifth. I'll give San Francisco a fourth place finish. I'll give Arizona a third place finish this year. I think that they're enough to overtake the Giants. Dodgers can be second place, and the Padres win this division. They get the division title this year. So we've taken a look at the American League West and the National League West. We're now going to shift to the division that's a little more close to home for me, and we're going to preview the American League Central Division next week. This division, again, as a White Sox fan, I'm excited to do this show next week. We're going to be talking American League Central Division. Can the Cleveland Guardians keep up this great team that they put together last year? Did they do enough in the offseason to repeat as AL Central champions? Can the White Sox pick up from a disappointing 2022 season. We all know that in 2021 they had a great season. They ran away with that division. 2022, there was a lot of things going wrong for this club. They could just never find that winning way. They bring in a new manager, a new clubhouse staff to help this team. They do lose a couple of good key players in the offseason, but do they have enough in their farm system to keep up with the Cleveland Guardians? The Minnesota Twins, we talked about the Twins have a new uniform set coming through in 2023, but do they have enough to compete with the White Sox? Do they have enough to compete with the Guardians? And what about the Royals and Tigers? The Tigers were supposed to be this good team that was going to be up and coming to challenge the White Sox, challenge the Twins. They had a little bit of a down season last year, so did they do enough this offseason? And what about the Royals? Do the Royals have enough to actually compete, or are they still looking to this rebuild mode? Are they still looking to add more pieces to this team come this season? So next week we talk American League Central. I hope you tune in for a show. We'll be live again next Sunday at 10 o'clock p.m. That'll be after the AFC and NFC championship game. So if you're a football and baseball fan, go watch the conference championship games next week. Hopefully, if you're a 49ers or Eagle fan, you're looking for a good game, that game will be in Philadelphia. And we get a rematch of the AFC championship game from last year, Cincinnati and Kansas City. So tune in next week here on the Bullpen Podcast at 10 p.m. We're going to be live on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel on YouTube. We are going to be bringing you some more YouTube only content once the season gets going. And we will keep you up to date on Twitter with everything Major League Baseball and World Baseball Classic. Until then, have a great night, everyone, and thank you for tuning in.